When my 7-year-old daughter, Penny, stood up in that cold police interrogation room and asked if she should tell them where her daddy hid her baby brother, every adult in that room stopped breathing. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows on faces frozen in shock. My ex-husband Garrett's confident smirk vanished. His mother, Dorothy's theatrical sobbing cut off mid-wail. Detective Walsh's pen stopped moving across his notepad. And me? I felt my heart restart after 18 hours of suffocating terror. Let me back up, because you need to understand who we all were before this moment shattered everything we thought we knew about each other. I'm Raina Mitchell, 32 years old, and until 18 hours ago, I thought the worst thing that could happen to me had already happened when I divorced Garrett 8 months earlier. I work as a freelance graphic designer from home, which means yoga pants are my uniform and coffee is my lifeline. My friends call me the responsible one, the planner, the one who color codes her calendar and never forgets school permission slips. That woman disappeared the moment I realized my 3-year-old son was missing. Garrett Mitchell, my ex-husband, sat across from me in that interrogation room like he owned the place. 34 years old, regional sales manager for a tech company, the kind of guy who still wore his college ring and talked about his glory days as a quarterback. Women found him charming with his easy smile and that little dimple in his left cheek. I used to find him charming too, until I discovered he'd gambled away our savings and maxed out credit cards I didn't even know existed. Now that dimple just reminded me of every lie he'd told with that same confident grin. Dorothy Mitchell, Garrett's mother, perched on the edge of her chair like a vulture in designer clothing. 58 years old, but trying desperately to look 40, she wore enough jewelry to stock a small store. The tears streaming down her face had already created dark rivulets through her foundation. "My poor grandbaby," she kept moaning, clutching a handkerchief that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Dorothy had never liked me. According to her, I wasn't good enough for her precious son. Not pretty enough, not wealthy enough, not submissive enough. Then there was Penny, my 7-year-old daughter, sitting in the corner with her box of crayons spread across a small table. Brown hair in 2 neat braids I'd done yesterday morning, back when our biggest worry was whether she'd finish her homework before dance class. She wore her favorite purple sweater with the unicorn on it, the one she insisted on wearing 3 times a week. Most people underestimated Penny because she was quiet, always watching, rarely speaking unless spoken to. But behind those big brown eyes was a mind that missed nothing, forgot nothing, and understood far more than any second grader should have to understand. And Theo, my baby boy, 3 years old and missing for 18 hours that felt like 18 years. Theo with his dinosaur obsession and his infectious giggle. Theo who called butterflies flutterbees and insisted on wearing his Superman cape to grocery stores. Theo, who should have been in our backyard playing with his trucks, but had vanished like smoke while I was inside answering work emails. Detective Walsh sat at the head of the table, a man in his 50s who looked like he'd seen too much and slept too little. His partner, Officer Rivera, stood by the door taking notes. The interrogation room smelled like burnt coffee and disinfectant, with that underlying scent of desperation that probably never left these walls. "Mrs. Mitchell," Detective Walsh had been saying moments before Penny spoke up, "your ex-husband has made some serious allegations. He claims you've been struggling financially and that you mentioned needing money desperately." "That's not what happened," I said, my voice cracking from hours of crying and screaming Theo's name. "I mentioned that private school tuition was expensive. Every parent says that. It doesn't mean I sold my child." Garrett leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "Detective, check her bank records. Check her phone. She's been meeting with strange men. The neighbors have seen them coming and going. Drug dealers, probably." "Those were contractors fixing our roof leak," I shot back, "and my brother helping install a new water heater. You know this, Garrett. You know exactly who they were." Dorothy's wailing intensified. She never let us see the children enough. Always making excuses, always claiming they were busy or sick. She was hiding something. That's when Penny looked up from her coloring, a green crayon still in her hand. Her voice was small but clear, cutting through the adult chaos like a blade through tissue paper. "Should I tell them where Daddy hid my little brother and what Grandma said about it?" The room went silent. And in that silence, everything changed. The custody battle had been brutal, the kind that leaves everyone scarred and no one victorious. 8 months ago, I discovered Garrett had been living a double life. While I was budgeting grocery money and clipping coupons, he was betting thousands on sports games and poker websites. The credit card statements I found hidden in his car told a story of casino, ATM withdrawals at 3 a.m., and cash advances that made my stomach turn. $47,000 in debt that I knew nothing about. When confronted, he didn't even apologize. He said I didn't understand the pressure he was under at work, that gambling helped him cope, that he was going to win it all back. The divorce was finalized in January. The judge granted me primary custody of Penny and Theo, with Garrett getting weekends and Wednesday dinners. He fought it hard, bringing Dorothy to every hearing where she testified about what a devoted father he was, how the children needed their dad, how I was being vindictive. But the judge saw through it. The gambling addiction, the financial deception, the fact that Garrett had missed 12 of Penny's school events but never missed a poker night. The ruling was clear. I was the stable parent. The child support order was for $1,800 a month, calculated based on his $60,000 salary and our 2 children. Garrett acted like I'd asked for his kidney. "Bleeding me dry," he texted me repeatedly. "You're destroying my life." Meanwhile, I knew he'd just bought a new motorcycle and moved into a luxury apartment complex with a pool and gym. That Tuesday morning started like any other. I woke at 6:30, got Penny ready for school, made her favorite strawberry toast, and braided her hair while she told me about her science project on butterflies. Theo woke up around 7, stumbling into the kitchen with his dinosaur pajamas and messy bedhead, dragging his stuffed T-Rex named Chomper. "Mama, can I play outside after breakfast?" Theo asked, syrup dripping down his chin from the waffle I'd made him. "After I finish my morning meeting, baby." "Then we'll go outside together." But my client called with an emergency. Their entire website had crashed, and they needed immediate fixes before their product launch at noon. "Just 30 minutes, I told myself, setting Theo up in the backyard with his sandbox and trucks. Our yard was fully fenced, 6-foot privacy fence all around, with a gate that had a complicated latch Theo couldn't reach. I could see him from my office window. I checked on him at 10:30. He was making roads in the sandbox, talking to himself in that adorable way 3-year-olds do, creating whole conversations between his toy trucks. I smiled and went back to coding. The client kept messaging with more changes. Just 10 more minutes, I thought. At 11, I went to bring him inside for a snack. The gate was open. The backyard was empty except for his favorite red truck sitting abandoned in the sand. "Theo?" I called out, my voice already tight with worry. "Theo, where are you hiding?" I checked behind the shed, inside the playhouse, behind every bush and tree. My calls became screams. "Theo, this isn't funny. Come out right now." Mrs. Chen from next door came to her fence. "What's wrong, honey? Have you seen Theo?" "He was just here. The gate is open." She shook her head, immediately pulling out her phone. "I'll check my security camera." I ran through the neighborhood in my slippers and pajama pants, screaming his name until my throat burned. The construction workers at the new house 3 doors down stopped their work to help search. The mail carrier called it in on his radio. Within 20 minutes, half the neighborhood was looking, but Theo had vanished. My 911 call was barely coherent. "My son is missing. He's 3. Brown hair, brown eyes, about 3 feet tall. He's wearing a dinosaur shirt, the green one with the T-Rex, and blue shorts. Please, God, please help me find him." The first officer arrived within 7 minutes. Then another. Then Detective Walsh. They asked for recent photos, what he might have taken with him, if he had any favorite places he talked about. My hands shook so badly I could barely unlock my phone to show them pictures. That's when Garrett arrived with Dorothy, barely an hour after I'd called 911. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't look panicked about his missing son. Instead, he walked in with an expression I'd never seen before, cold calculation mixed with barely concealed satisfaction. "Where is he, Raina?" His voice carried an accusation, not a question. "What did you do with our son?" Dorothy was already crying, mascara streaming down her cheeks. "I told you she wasn't fit to have them. I told you something like this would happen." And I stood there in my pajamas, grass stains on my knees from crawling under bushes, my baby boy missing, while they performed their rehearsed show of blame. At the police station, Garrett's performance was nothing short of theatrical. He sat forward in his chair, hands clasped like a concerned father, but his eyes held something else entirely: triumph. "Detective Walsh, you need to check her phone records, check her bank accounts, check everything." He paused for effect, glancing at his mother before continuing. "Raina's been struggling financially for months. Last week she called me crying, said she couldn't afford Penny's dance classes anymore, said she was desperate, that she'd do anything for money. That's a complete lie." The words exploded from me. "I said dance classes were expensive when you refused to pay your half, like the divorce decree states. You're twisting everything." Garrett ignored me, addressing the detective directly. "She's been acting erratic lately. Ask her neighbors about the strange men coming and going from the house at all hours. Different men, detective. Sometimes 2 or 3 a week." My stomach churned. He was talking about my brother Mike, who'd spent 3 days fixing our leaking roof, the HVAC technician who'd repaired our air conditioning, the grocery delivery driver who brought our weekly orders. Garrett knew exactly who each person was, because I'd texted him every time someone needed to enter the house, following our custody agreement's communication requirements. "Those were contractors and delivery people, Garrett?" "You have the texts. I sent you every single notification as required." Dorothy chose that moment to escalate her performance. She stood up, pointing a manicured finger at me, her voice shaking with manufactured rage. "You never deserved those babies. Always so proud, so independent, refusing our help. Garrett offered to take them so many times, practically begged you to let them stay with him where they'd be safe and properly cared for. But no, you had to be stubborn. You had to prove you could do it all alone." "Mrs. Mitchell," Senior Detective Walsh interjected calmly, "please sit down. We're trying to establish facts here." But Dorothy wasn't finished. "Facts? The fact is, she's been unstable since the divorce. Depressed, anxious, probably on drugs. Who knows what she's capable of? My poor grandbaby sold to God knows who for drug money." She collapsed back into her chair with a theatrical sob. "I've never used drugs in my life," I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "Test me right now, hair, blood, whatever you want." Detective Walsh made notes while his partner, Officer Rivera, watched everyone's reactions. "Mr. Mitchell, these are serious accusations. Do you have any proof of drug use or these financial troubles you're describing?" Garrett pulled out his phone with the confidence of a man holding a royal flush. "Here. 3 weeks ago, she texted me asking for an advance on next month's child support. When I said no, she became hostile, said I'd regret it, said she'd find the money somewhere else. I remembered that exchange differently. I'd asked for the support payment 2 days early because Theo needed antibiotics and my freelance client hadn't paid yet. Garrett had responded with laughing emojis and, 'Maybe budget better?' Show them my exact words," I challenged. "Show them where I said I'd find money somewhere else or threatened you." Garrett scrolled through his phone, frowning. "She must have deleted them from my phone somehow. She's good with technology." Throughout this chaos, Penny sat in the corner, methodically coloring a picture of a house. But I knew my daughter. When she colored this carefully, this quietly, she was listening to every word. Her green crayon moved in perfect strokes while her eyes darted between the adults in the room. "There's more," Garrett continued, his voice dropping to a concerned whisper. "Last month, Theo came to my apartment with bruises on his arms. When I asked what happened, he said Mommy was upset. Kids don't lie about things like that." "He fell off the monkey bars," I shouted, my control finally breaking. "You were there. You took him to the emergency room with me. You saw the playground surveillance video." Dorothy dabbed at her eyes with her handkerchief. "She's always got an excuse, doesn't she? Always a story, but mothers who sell their children always do." Detective Walsh looked up from his notes. "Mrs. Mitchell, can anyone verify your whereabouts this morning? Any witnesses who saw Theo in the yard?" "Mrs. Chen has security cameras. She's already checking them. I was on video calls with clients. Check my computer. Everything is time-stamped." "Convenient," Garrett muttered. "She's had hours to create an alibi." That's when Penny set down her crayon. She looked directly at her father, then at the detective, then back to her coloring. "Mommy didn't sell Theo," she said in her small, clear voice. The room turned toward her. Detective Walsh knelt beside her chair, his voice gentle. "How do you know that, sweetheart?" Penny picked up a blue crayon, considering it carefully before answering. "Because I was awake last night when Daddy came to our house." The silence that followed was deafening. The room fell completely silent. Garrett's face went from confident to chalk white in the span of 2 seconds. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air before he finally managed to speak. "She's confused. Kids make things up when they're scared. This has been traumatic for her." But Penny shook her head slowly, deliberately, still coloring as if we were discussing the weather. "No, Daddy. I'm not confused. You came through the back door. The one with the broken lock you said you'd fix but never did. You promised to fix it 3 months ago when you still lived with us." My mind raced, pieces clicking together like a horrible puzzle. The broken lock on our back door that Garrett had insisted wasn't urgent. "It still latches," he'd said. "No one's going to break in through your backyard." I'd been meaning to call a locksmith but kept putting it off, trusting that the fence and the latch were enough. God, how stupid I'd been. Detective Walsh stayed at Penny's eye level, his voice remaining gentle but taking on a new edge of urgency. "Penny, this is very important. Can you tell me exactly what you saw last night?" Dorothy stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. You're going to traumatize the child further by making her create stories. Garrett, tell them to stop badgering her." "Sit down, Mrs. Mitchell," Officer Rivera said firmly. It wasn't a request. Penny looked at me and I nodded encouragingly despite the fear coursing through my veins. "Tell them what you saw, baby. Tell the truth." "I woke up because I heard Chomper fall," Penny began, referring to Theo's stuffed dinosaur that he never slept without. "Theo's room is next to mine and the walls are thin. I heard Daddy's voice saying, 'Shh, buddy, we're going on an adventure.' Theo loves adventures." Garrett's hands were clenched so tight his knuckles were white. "This is insane. I was at my apartment all night. Check with my building's security." But Penny continued, her voice steady and clear. "I got out of bed and looked through the crack under my door. I could see Daddy's shoes, the brown ones with the paint stain from when he helped paint our fence. He was carrying Theo, and Theo was really sleepy, still holding his blankie. "She's been coached," Dorothy shrieked. "Raina's put these ideas in her head. This is parental alienation." Detective Walsh held up a hand for silence, never taking his eyes off Penny. "What happened next, sweetheart?" I went to my window to see where they were going. Grandma Dorothy was in Daddy's car outside, the silver one with the dent in the back. She was in the driver's seat and the engine was running. I could see the red lights. My blood turned to ice. Dorothy lived 2 hours away in Scottsdale. For her to be in, the car meant this was planned, coordinated. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment custody violation. This was kidnapping. "You little liar!" Dorothy lunged toward Penny, but Officer Rivera caught her arm. "How dare you make up such horrible stories about your grandmother?" Penny didn't flinch. She just picked up another crayon and added windows to the house she was drawing. "Grandma, you were wearing your blue jacket, the one with the gold buttons, and you had your big purse, the one you keep candy in but only give us 1 piece because you say Mommy feeds us too much sugar." Detective Walsh stood slowly, his entire demeanor shifting. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm going to need you to provide your whereabouts for last night, specifically between midnight and 3 a.m. "This is harassment," Garrett sputtered. "My daughter is clearly confused, probably dreaming. Kids have vivid imaginations. Then you won't mind showing us your phone's location data," Officer Rivera said, moving closer to Garrett. "Should be easy to prove you were at your apartment all night." Penny set down her crayon and looked directly at Detective Walsh. "There's more. Yesterday, when Grandma called Daddy, I heard her on speakerphone in his car when he picked me up from school. She said after Daddy gets us back, they're moving to her house in Arizona. She said Mommy would look crazy and never find us. She said the plane tickets were already bought." "Plane tickets?" Detective Walsh's voice sharpened. "Penny, did you hear anything else about these plane tickets?" "Grandma said they were for Thursday morning." "That's tomorrow. She said they had to make Mommy look bad first so no one would believe her when we disappeared." Garrett stood up so fast his chair fell backward. "I want a lawyer. Right now." This is a witch hunt." But Detective Walsh was already signaling to Officer Rivera, who stepped outside to make a call. The detective turned back to Penny, his voice urgent but still gentle. "Penny, do you know where your daddy took Theo? Did you hear them say where they were going?" Penny nodded, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a spark of hope. "I know where Theo is," Penny announced, setting down her crayon with the same calm deliberation she'd shown throughout this interrogation. "Daddy told him they were going to the special cabin, the one near the big lake where we used to go fishing before you and Daddy stopped loving each other. Grandpa Joe's cabin." Garrett's face went from pale to gray. "She doesn't know what she's talking about. Dad sold that cabin years ago." "No, he didn't," Penny said simply. "You told Mommy he sold it, but Grandpa Joe told me last Christmas that he kept it for when you and Mommy stopped being angry at each other. He said it would always be our family place." Detective Walsh was already pulling up something on his computer. "Mr. Mitchell, property records show your father, Joseph Mitchell, still owns a cabin on Lake Harrison, 43 miles north of here." He turned his screen toward us. "This cabin?" Dorothy grabbed Garrett's arm. "Don't say another word, not one word." But Detective Walsh wasn't looking at them anymore. He was on his radio, his words rapid and precise. "I need units dispatched to 4782 Lake Harrison Road immediately. Possible child recovery. Approach with caution. Elderly male likely on premises with a 3-year-old boy." "This is insane!" Garrett exploded, but his voice cracked with desperation. "You're sending police based on the fantasies of a 7-year-old? Officer Rivera re-entered the room, holding his phone. "Detective, I just pulled Mr. Mitchell's cell tower data from our emergency warrant. His phone pinged off a tower near Lake Harrison at 2:17 a.m. last night. That's 43 minutes after Mrs. Mitchell called 911 about the missing child." The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the table to keep from falling. They'd taken my baby while I was sleeping, while I was in the same house, trusting that locked doors and fenced yards meant safety. "There's more," Rivera continued. "Mr. Mitchell's credit card was used at a gas station 3 miles from the lake at 2:47 a.m. Security footage is being pulled now." Garrett stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "I want my lawyer. Right now. This is a setup. Raina planned this whole thing to keep me from my kids." "Sit down, Mr. Mitchell," Detective Walsh commanded, his nice guy demeanor completely gone. "You're not under arrest yet, but that can change very quickly." Dorothy's carefully constructed composure finally cracked completely. "You don't understand. She turned our babies against us. Garrett barely sees them. The support payments are destroying him financially. His apartment, his car payments, everything. We had to do something." "Mom, shut up!" Garrett roared, but it was too late. "We had to do something," Dorothy repeated, tears streaming down her face. But these seemed real now, desperate. "The system is biased against fathers. No one cares that she's poisoning them against us. Penny won't even hug me anymore." "Because you smell like cigarettes and you pinch my cheeks too hard," Penny said quietly, adding a son to her picture. Detective Walsh's radio crackled to life. Every person in the room held their breath. "Detective, we're at the cabin." We can see movement inside, confirming one elderly male visible through the window. Approaching now. The longest 30 seconds of my life passed before the radio crackled again. "We have the child." Repeat, "We have the child." He appears unharmed, asking for his mommy. The elderly male is Joseph Mitchell, age 68. He says his son told him he had emergency custody and needed help watching the boy for a few days. My legs gave out. Officer Rivera caught me before I hit the floor, guiding me to a chair. Theo was safe. My baby was safe. "Also, Detective," the voice continued, "we found documents in a bedroom. Here, multiple plane tickets to Phoenix for tomorrow morning. Names on the tickets are Garrett Mitchell, Dorothy Mitchell, Joseph Mitchell, and 2 minors. There's also paperwork that appears to be forged custody documents." Penny got up from her coloring table and walked over to me. She climbed into my lap, something she rarely did anymore, considering herself too big for such things. "I knew they'd find him, Mommy. I remembered everything, just like you taught me. When something feels wrong, remember all the details. Detective Walsh looked at Garrett and Dorothy. Garrett Mitchell, Dorothy Mitchell, you're under arrest for kidnapping, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, filing a false police report, and conspiracy to commit custodial interference. You have the right to remain silent. As Officer Rivera read them their rights, Garrett's eyes met mine. For the first time since I'd known him, I saw real fear there. Not fear of losing money or control, but fear of consequences he couldn't gamble his way out of. "Raina, please," he started, but I turned away, holding Penny tighter. "Mommy," Penny whispered, "can we go get Theo now?" "Yes, baby," I whispered back. "We can go get your brother." 2 hours later, I held Theo so tight he squirmed in my arms, his little hands pushing against my chest. "Mama, too, squeeze!" He giggled, completely unaware that he'd been a pawn in his father's twisted game. His dinosaur shirt was wrinkled, his hair messy, but he was whole, safe, and back where he belonged. "Grandpa Joe gave me ice cream for breakfast, chocolate chip." Penny sat beside us in the police station's family room, her coloring book abandoned, watching her brother with an intensity that broke my heart. "I kept him safe, Mommy," she whispered. "I remembered everything so they could find him." Detective Walsh knocked and entered with a cup of hot chocolate for Penny and some juice for Theo. "Mrs. Mitchell, I need you to know something. Your daughter's observation skills and courage saved this case. Without her testimony, this could have gone very differently." He sat down across from us, his expression serious but kind. "In 23 years of doing this job, I've seen parental kidnappings that ended in tragedy. Parents disappearing across state lines, children never recovered. Your ex-husband was 40 minutes away from taking both children on that plane tomorrow. The forged custody documents were sophisticated. They'd paid someone good money to make them look legitimate." Joseph Mitchell, Garrett's father, had been brought in for questioning but wasn't charged. The poor man was devastated when he learned the truth. "Garrett told me you'd had a breakdown," he'd told police, his voice shaking. Said the court gave him emergency custody and he needed help with Theo for a few days while they looked for treatment facilities for Raina. "I never questioned my own son. God forgive me, I never even called to check." The legal consequences came, swift and harsh. Garrett was charged with kidnapping, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, filing a false police report, and conspiracy to commit custodial interference. The prosecutor, a woman named Linda Martinez, who'd seen too many of these cases, told me he was looking at 5 to 7 years if convicted on all counts. Dorothy faced the same charges plus an additional charge of attempted assault for lunging at Penny in the interrogation room. "The premeditation is what's going to hurt them most," Linda explained during our meeting. "The plane tickets purchased weeks ago, the systematic attempt to paint you as an unfit mother, using the broken lock he deliberately didn't fix. This wasn't a desperate parent making a bad decision. This was a calculated plan to steal your children and disappear." 6 months have passed since that terrifying day. Garrett took a plea deal for 5 years, eligible for parole in 3. He lost all parental rights. Dorothy got 18 months and a permanent restraining order keeping her away from my children. She still sends letters to the court claiming she was trying to save her grandchildren, but nobody's listening anymore. The broken lock has been replaced with a smart lock that alerts my phone whenever anyone approaches the door. I have security cameras now, though I try not to obsess over them. Some nights, I still check them 3, 4, 5 times before I can sleep. I peek into my children's rooms to watch their chests rise and fall, to assure myself they're still there. Penny started therapy, something I worried would make her feel broken or different. Instead, she told me it helps her understand that remembering details isn't a burden she has to carry alone. "Dr. Amy says my observation skills are a superpower," she told me proudly. "But even superheroes need help sometimes." Last week, she asked me something that stopped me cold. "Mommy, why did Daddy think people would believe I was lying?" I sat with her question for a moment, choosing my words carefully, because sometimes adults forget that children see everything. They think being quiet means not paying attention. They think being small means being unimportant. She nodded solemnly, processing this information in that careful way she does. "Good thing I was paying attention, huh?" Good thing, indeed. My 7-year-old daughter had saved her brother not with strength or authority, but with the simple act of telling the truth when it mattered most. She'd learned what too many adults forget. Sometimes the smallest voice in the room carries the most power, especially when that voice refuses to be silenced by the chaos around it. Theo doesn't remember much about his adventure with Grandpa Joe. Sometimes he asks why he can't see Daddy anymore, and I tell him age-appropriate truths. Daddy made some bad choices and needs time to learn from them. It seems to satisfy him for now. The truth is, we survived something that could have destroyed us. We're different now, more cautious but also stronger. We know that monsters aren't just in fairy tales, that sometimes they wear familiar faces and warm smiles. But we also know that truth, spoken bravely by even the smallest voice, will always defeat the most elaborate lies. We're healing, one day at a time, one truth at a time. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you to listen to the children in your life, to trust their observations and validate their voices, please like this video and share it with others who need to hear it. Your comments mean everything to me, whether you're sharing your own experiences or simply offering support to others in this community. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that remind us of the strength we carry, even in our darkest moments. Together, we're never alone.